I'm a photographer and a writer, and my work has taken over the years many different forms. I've worked in a lot of different media, film, video, performance, but the central questions of photography are always at the heart of it, whether it's in print form or not. And some of those questions for me are, what are the ethics of photography? What does it mean to represent something? What does it mean to sort of question representation? How to honor something? My current work, which is very much in progress now, is a meditation on aging. I've returned to using a view camera in my work, which is something I trained with, 30 years ago. And I've kind of returned to it for a number of reasons. I like the pacing of it. I like to sort of work slow and work in an intentional way. The work itself sort of takes several different subjects and working metaphorically with the idea of aging, but particularly being a woman who's aging. The work began in the pandemic when we were all sort of thrown into the great outdoors, and I discovered this geological sort of formation that is very much in this part of Ohio. They're called concretions. And I was just incredibly moved by them. And in some ways, the project has been kind of unpacking my fascination with them, but they are these rock formations that emerge out of shale. And essentially what happens is like biological matter would get stuck between the sheets of shale. Through the sort of movement of the rain and different minerals, these rocks would grow, and then you eventually would emerge from the shale. And when I saw them, I was just incredibly moved by them. Like on one hand, like they're monumental, they're not small, and at the same time they're incredibly fragile. And for me, I just saw this kind of very powerful image of like what it means to age as a woman. In some sense, there's sort of all, and I'm speaking very personally now, like I feel monumental at this age, and at the same time, I feel like deeply, deeply vulnerable, like sort of in my attachments to the world, in my body. I don't think about my work in a kind of activist sense, like that it's really meant to be strategic in some ways, but I do think of it as being deeply political. So in that sense, like I think there are many artists out in the world who are sort of that sort of line between taking action as a citizen and sort of what they do in their studio is very thin. I guess I see my work as sort of holding a lot of my own values, be they political, be they, yes, just the sort of politics of it. But I wouldn't say it comes first. I mean, because part of it is I love working with the materials I work with. I love the sort of contemplative aspects of it, but they always sort of begin with questions about how can I kind of live in the world as a citizen and live in the world as an artist. The first book I wrote is about my daughter's adoption, and part of it was I was really interested in thinking about like how is adoption a kind of primary way of being a mother as opposed to, I think a lot of people think of it as like, well, I can't have a baby, so I'm going to do this. And so it ended up combining like several things for me. It was like, how can I talk about my experience, which I haven't really seen reflected in other kinds of art other kinds of literature. It also roped in my interest in 19th century photography because I use the hidden mother form, which is this kind of 19th century vernacular form where the mother would hold the baby, but she would be hidden by the photographer in some ways. And so I think, it's always a little bit like triangulating these, it's like, what is going on with me? What are my sort of political interests, my intellectual interests, and then how is it meaningful to me and kind of working through materials.